guys, welcome back to Vinceville Custom. So today we're going to do a work in progress video of swapping out a Harley Quinn head onto this SIdeshow premium format Catwoman statue. Now, this is the head that came with the statue. This is the Harley Quinn head. I forget which version of Harley Quinn this came from, but the person who sent it to me already chopped up the head, kind of like rebuilt the skull with some Aves. They cleaned up the mask and all that stuff. So what he wants is, he wants this head to go on there, and he wants it to have hair with goggles, but he wants it to look like that one picture where, where Catwoman got arrested and she's kind of like crying, and all the mascara is kind of bleeding down her eyes. So that's kind of what we're following here. He also does have the goggles from the old premium format statue, so we'll probably put that up there as well. I have to see. Now, I think I might have an extra goggle or two in my box, so this way I can actually use one to kind of sculpt the hair and do stuff where I don't mess this one up too much. So that's kind of a good thing. But for right now, sometimes you can do this a few ways. One, you can grab some Aves of Magic Sculpt. You can shove it in there with some, saran wrap. You can put the head on there and you can sort of do that and everything. But we want to make sure the head is kind of positioned correctly, as you can kind of see. We don't want it to look in a weird direction when it's on the statue. So the best thing I think I could do is, since I told him not to send me the base, we just need to really focus on the head more than anything, is I'm going to copy this key. So I'm going to grab out the mold. We're going to go over that in a second. I'm going to make a quick mold of that. And then from there, once the key is made up, I can sort of chop out this key and this head, sort of kind of reposition everything and go from there. So it's a little bit of extra steps. Once we get the head situated, then I can actually go ahead and start doing all the sculpt work with the hair, the goggles, and clean it and paint it and all that. Okay, first step is we need some kind of a cup device to kind of get this head in correctly. So this is Easy Mold. This is a two-part mold system. This is great for stuff like this. This is kind of a push type mold. This is not really good if you want to, like, say if you had, like, really super detailed stuff like this old arm from a Poison Ivy statue with all these leaves. This stuff really wouldn't get in there because it would probably create too much bubbles and stuff. But if you're going to push a key into this stuff, it's really good to make something like that. So this has its uses, but it also has its downsides. So what we need to do is sort of kind of get an idea where we're going to cut this. So we'll kind of cut it, like, right about here. Like there. Should be good enough. The goal is to sort of, you know, get the least amount of mold in there to make a quick key. And these X-Acto blades are always a pain. Okay, and then that should be good enough for making a key. Now, the good thing about this stuff, it will not destroy your paints, at least not these Chinese factory paints from here. This stuff is just a little oily, so this way stuff comes off of it pretty well. So basically, once you put this in there and you pop it out, you just got to kind of really wash out the paints and go from there. So you really don't have to worry about getting this all messed up with this process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix this up, I'm going to shove this in there, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the head and I'm going to push it into there to create a key. Now sometimes, depending on your key, like you see how this key has this really flat area here and it's pretty wide. Sometimes when you push this stuff in there, sometimes air bubbles will get caught in there and it won't work. But this one is actually fairly straightforward, where a lot of this will kind of bleed out, so it's fine. It should work pretty well. Now when you mix A and B together in equal amounts, this stuff takes about, I don't know, not long at all. I forget how many minutes, but literally you have probably, like, I would say 10 minutes work time, and then it kind of cures up in about a good 15 minutes to 20 minutes, and then after that you could kind of make copies. But it really should have enough just for here, so you want to make sure you make enough and go from there. I've had this stuff for a long time now, so it's good to kind of use it up. But it's definitely very oily. It's kind of like oily in a sense where it mixes well, it just gets a little residue on your hands, and then from there it just makes it so stuff doesn't really stick to it. Now sometimes when you make a copy with resin, sometimes your first pour of resin in there might get a little funky, and then you got to pour in another one. But we'll go over that later. So let me get this mixed up. When we'll come back and we'll pop the head in. Alright, so I mixed it together. It's all ready to go. Like I said, you don't really have to worry about this destroying any paints. Maybe if you're using acrylic paints, or it's kind of like, you know, more paints we use in this country, maybe it's a problem. But with this stuff, it shouldn't be a problem. So just take this and just squeeze it and push it down. And that's it. Just let it sit. It's just going to sit there for, I don't know, a few minutes. We'll come back. You'll get a better sense when you kind of start pushing it. If you start putting your fingernail in there and it's not really making any marks and it's kind of just like very tough, it's almost ready to pop it out. Now you don't need to press it all the way down to the bottom and go from there. It's just enough to make this key and we're pretty good. So let's just let it set up and we'll come back. Okay, it's pretty much ready to go. You put your finger on there now, it's kind of just like doing nothing, so it just comes right out. See? So you just basically make a simple key, and there's really no residue that's on here. I'll wipe it down and make sure there's nothing here, but it makes a really good clean key. Not 100% perfect. Maybe a little spot over here is might be a little bit of an issue. Maybe there's a little air bubble there, but other than that, it's pretty good. So I'm going to actually let this sit for probably, I don't know, another 15-20 minutes while I do some other stuff, and then what I'll do is I'll go in the garage and make a quick copy of the key with resin and come back. I'm not going to show you how to make it because it's just mixing resin, pouring it in, and popping it out. Plus, it's a nice day outside, so I'd rather do it outside and not have to breathe any of that in the studio. So hopefully when we come back, I'll be able to pop out the key and we can start planning out how to chop this up. Okay, so I went ahead and I poured the first mold in here with resin. It's been in here for a few minutes, so it's pretty much hard out. Now, sometimes, like I said, if there's a lot of moisture in here, sometimes when I pour in this resin, when I pop it out, it doesn't cure right and it gets all funky and it gets messed up. So sometimes I have to pour another one, but sometimes I get lucky. So we're going to see what happens on this one. Sometimes it just doesn't want to come out. I don't need to worry about this part up here. Just kind of... But... touching it, it cured up pretty nice. It's hot right now. But all in all, this one cured up good. So I was pretty lucky on my first one here. A little bit softer up here around these areas, but I'm actually going to really let this cure before I do anything with it. I'm not really even going to mess with it that much. I don't want to touch the main statue or the good head with it, because sometimes you get a little sticky residue from any of the other resins I use. So I'm actually at the point right now where my hands are really dirty. I've kind of touched some stuff, so I don't want to touch anything that's clean and stuff, so I'm going to just do some work in the garage. But at least we have the key pretty much ready to go. Now, there is a little bit of a mess up here. Now, this is kind of what I said. Sometimes these things don't work out right. So, if you can kind of see here, like, I'll point to it with this tool, like a little bit right here. It's a little bit messy underneath here. So, that might have been like a little air bubble cause. So I might have to sand this down a bit, or I might not. But I'm going to, also over here, you see that like this little part here, and this little part over here got messed up. So I'm thinking maybe there was a little bit of an air bubble there too. I'm not really sure. You can also see like right here, maybe there's a little air bubble pocket here. So this process isn't 100% perfect, but it's good enough for a key. So as long as this key goes in there and I can add a magnet and the head pops in and out, we're good to go. So like I said, I'm going to put this aside, just like let it sit there, let it cure up, and then next step, probably in a day or two or whenever I get back to this, I can actually start doing some chopping and everything like that, maybe even tomorrow. But as of right now, this mold is pretty much, you know, if you're never going to use it again, you chuck it, or if you think you might use it again, you put it in a box with future molds in case someone ever contacts you, or you want to swap out a key or whatever. But majority of the time, I end up throwing these away after a few months because I don't use them anymore. But we're pretty good now. So we'll let that cure up. We'll come back with the next steps. I think what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to be going in the garage, and I'm actually going to chop this key off, and I'm going to kind of get this key cut off. I don't need this part anymore. I just basically need the head like that. So while I go in the garage and I chop stuff, I'm going to get this chopped up. I'm going to get this prepped so I can actually attach it to there. But hopefully we'll give you an idea when this is ready to go. So I was able this morning to chop up the key, so I just sanded it down at an angle. I got that all situated. I went and chopped up the neck on this because you didn't want that neck. You want to sort of come here like this. So I pretty much got the angle where we're going to go. It's just a matter of trying to get the head lined up. So I have some Magic Sculpt mixed up. I got my gel glue here. I got some masking tape already pulled off to the side and stuff. So I'm going to do this sort of like fast, sped up, because it's kind of hard to show this in a better way without having the base here. If I had the base here and she was situated, I'd be able to show the camera on how I'm going to do it, but I got to kind of move it around and stuff. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to shove some Magic Sculpt here, some Magic Sculpt there, use some glue on the back of it, bond the head a little bit, probably use some masking tape to hold it, and let it sit. And then hopefully by the end of the day and tomorrow, I'll be able to pull this up. It'll be bonded, and I can use some Aves, and I could kind of go around there with Aves and clean it up. And then basically once we get the head and key done, I will be able to sort of set this up in a way where I can put a rod up here and do the hair, do the sculpt and everything, pull that out at the end, and then put a magnet in. Trying to put a magnet in there now and then hold this and try to do it without some kind of support, it's going to be a nightmare. So we just have to take a couple extra steps. But I pretty much got the head bonded to where I want it. I think that's a good position for it. Just kind of leaning down a little bit. We'll have to lift it up a bit. But it's just a matter of trying to get that on there and let it sit. And even if I have to sort of do this, like if I have to put, like, say this is kind of like a little bit upwards. Say I squeeze a little bit of gel glue here and I hit it with some of the Insta-Set. If it looks messy and there's a gap, it's not a big deal. Like I said, I can go back in there later. It's a matter of just positioning the head correctly for now. I would put a rod in there, but like I said, I need to Dremel a hole up here to hold this. So it might even be good to Dremel a hole up there with a rod, because there might be some gaps in there I could also fill in and just kind of really make it secure to the key. Okay, so what I did is slowly I put in my tool and I pried up the head a little bit. So this way the glue was sort of stay, but it didn't actually, you know, pop off. So this way I lifted the neck a little bit. Now it's kind of hard to show you what's going on because it falls out of the head. But if you look at it at this position, it's got that little bit of a turn looking downward, pouty. But if you look over here, it's pretty much lined up the way the other one was. The only problem I'm going to have is over here, so I just got to do some filling. So since I have enough Magic Sculpt, and this is working out pretty well, what I think I might do is, just to be on the safe side, just to like get this secured, I'm going to throw some glue here, and I'll show you why I'm going to do it, just to hold it. And I can chisel this out later. It's not going to be, because I don't want this head to sort of kind of bring this down and squeeze it over time. So what we're going to do is we're going to just take some glue. We're going to just shove it right over in here. It's not the end of the world if it's a little bit sticking out. And we'll take some of our Insta-Set and we'll just throw that over there and just let it sit. So that's just going to add like a blocker. So you can see that little chunky glue there. It's just going to add like a little bit of a blocker there, and it's going to hold it in place. So that's good to just kind of keep it like that. So what I'm going to do now is just take some of this Magic Sculpt that I have left over and sort of fill this in over here a bit. Not all of it, just enough, just to kind of help secure it a little bit more. This way when it cures, I'd rather use Aves to really clean this up in here. I just want to use some of this Magic Sculpt on the back. Normally what I like to do is really let it cure up and dig out the glue here and then fill that in with Aves. Not that the glue is going to do any harm, it's just personal preference. Like this gap that's underneath here, I'd rather fill this in with Aves, just to kind of make everything seamed up better. But this is just going to like help secure it a little bit more. So what we'll do is we'll just kind of squeeze in the Magic Sculpt more into here in case there's any air pockets, and then let this set up like that. So it's messy. I was going to use some tape, but I don't think I need to use any tape because we're pretty well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go put this on the shelf for now and let it sit. And then hopefully by next session, what I do is I'll have this dremelled out a little bit, all the messy stuff, and we can use eaves. I want to have to Dremel out underneath the ear a little bit too. Use some eaves, build out everything here, get all this nice and clean. Then what we could do is put a rod up here for support, prime it up, make sure everything in the face is all nice and cleaned up and stuff, and then we can start planning out the goggles and the ears and all that stuff, and the hair. So it's the next day, and what I did is I went in the garage and I Dremeled out any of this stuff around here that had glue. The reason why I like to get the glue taken out of there, because if I put eaves over the glue, it's fine, but then when you go to sand down, and then if you start sanding down and then all of a sudden glue is showing, you sort of get like, you know, resin, like the resin, then you get some of the Magic Sculptor eaves, and then you get this resin, and you get polystone, and then you have glue, and nothing ever really sands the same. Some sand faster than others, sometimes the glue is a little bit more of a pain in the ass, so I'd rather just get that glue out of there. Gonna get some of this eaves now, I'm gonna go around the neck, build it right back up, get this cleaned up, and by the time we come back, I'll have a rod that is underneath here. I'll be able to hold it up, and maybe what we'll do is we'll have it primed up, see if we have any issues around the eyes and stuff, because one of the reasons why I always use red eaves is because you can see this is the natural color eaves that the client sent me to use. I always have a problem seeing this versus this. I can't really tell if there's any issues and stuff, so I really won't know until I put some primer on here. And then from there I can really see what's going on if I need to do any putty work. So I'd rather get the neck, the head, the key, everything uniform, and then we can start worrying about the hair and goggles. So at this point I got some tedious work, and I have to use my magnifying glass headgear to do all this. I have some putty, I have a lot of dentist tools, so you can see, I guess, what happened was when the client took out the mask, there's a little bit of a mess up around in here and stuff, and I just want to get all this cleaned up as much as possible, and I'm going to use some putty around here, and just get all this as cleaned up as possible. Some of this eye is a little bit, like, I guess the eye lid is kind of lost over here, so I'm going to see how much I can kind of fix up and stuff, and get all this kind of cleaned up, and then we'll come back after, once I got all the detailing to do, and go from there. As you can also see, though, there's some other spots around here. I mean, this is where the hair is going to be, so we're not really worried too much about that. But underneath the neckline, I want to do some putty work and kind of clean that up. A little bit over here, and just kind of keep going. So it's just tedious work and stuff. So once I get all that done, we'll be back. Quick little update before I go in the garage and clean this up. So after I cleaned out all this stuff up here, the nose was actually kind of chopped up. I don't know if maybe that happened when he kind of cleaned it up, or maybe accidentally sand some of it down. So I'm just kind of rebuilding a little bit of the tip of the nose, and I added eyebrows. Now they're really thick right now, but I'm going to sort of take all that stuff down right now, and then I'm going to prime it up and go over it one more time and clean it up. But I think this will at least help me when I go to paint it and stuff. At least there's something there. So we'll see how this kind of pans out once I prime and come back. So it is the next day, and yesterday I went ahead and, as you saw, just took a few hours to sort of sculpt this up. Sometimes I stopped the camera just to let the eaves stiffen up a bit. Then I went back in there and did some cuts and some waves, and then I just kept doing that to the point where it was pretty happy with it. Now, while I was doing it, I was sending pictures to the client. He liked it. Everything's looking good. So right now, I got to do cleanup. So I'm going to go in the garage right now. I'm going to sand this up. I'm going to prime it, get this cleaned up and everything. And then from there, we should be ready to add the magnet and then start painting. I would love to be able to paint it like this and be done, but I got to get the magnet in there. And sometimes I don't like trying to put the magnets in after the head is painted, only because messing with glue and eaves and stuff like that and trying to put it in and out of the statue, you could kind of scrape things up. So it's kind of better to get the magnet in there. Now, the only problem is once I get the magnet in there, I got to figure out how to set it up to paint it, but that's a little bit easier than trying to do it the other way around. So all I'm going to do now is just go in the garage, clean this up and everything. What I was kind of doing before is I was just kind of using my blue pencil, if the lid would come out. And I was just kind of like drawing here, like where the, you know, she's going to be like crying, like the picture of like that Catwoman. So, you know, it's going to be like, so it should look pretty cool. I think this head is going to turn out pretty cool, and I think it should look pretty sweet as a one-of-a-kind head. But let me get in there and clean this up, and then we'll come back once we're ready to start painting, because I should have the magnet in by then. Alright, so what I'm doing right now is we got the hair done, so I'm setting in the eyes, and because her head is downwards a little bit, I set the pupils up a little bit more so it looks like she's looking that way and she's kind of pissed off. So I'm doing is I'm going over the head, I'm setting up the eyes. What I also like to do is I like to use these decals once in a while too. These are kind of the, what are they? They're the Archifine Transfer ones, AR99003. For when I do specific looks, sometimes that doing the realistic eyes don't work on some of the smaller eyes and stuff, so I like to use these, and then I could put like little dots of paint in there to kind of make it pop a little bit more. It all depends on the sculpt and the way I'm looking for it, but you can kind of see where we're at right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and probably seal this up, because I position them where I want, and I'm going to go in there and touch them up. Then I'm going to go over the head, make sure I got any of the hair. There's a couple pieces I missed, because like I said, it was kind of hard to airbrush this and hold this at the same time when I had it masked off, because sometimes I miss some of these areas, like trying to get underneath. So I'm just going to go back in with the paintbrush, get everything, and then we'll come back once it's all finished. Alright, so we are all finished up. I really like the way this came out. Sorry about holding this in the photo set, in the studio, I mean. I would put it in the photo setup, but I would still have to hold it like this. But all in all, you get the idea. It looks pretty good. Now, these are the goggles that came with one of the heads. I forgot which one, but they just sent it to me. And they chopped out the back of the goggles. And the problem is I sanded it down a little bit, but it's plastic. So if you use like a Dremel tool, or you use anything, the problem is what's going to happen is it's going to melt more on you, and that's a very, very soft plastic too, which kind of sucks, but all in all, it worked out fine. So I had to kind of glue the one piece back there. I kind of hit some paints in some areas, and then I painted these two here metallic red. They were kind of like that really, really dark red going to like a little bit darker red, but we just kind of went full-blown red goggles on it. So I like it. It came out pretty cool. So this project was a lot of fun. The idea of taking other heads from other statues and swapping them is really, really a lot of fun. And this head really kind of gave you that Adam Hughes look, you know, where she's kind of pouting and she was arrested. So that's kind of the whole goal of the whole project, and it worked out great. Definitely a nice one-of-a-kind item for this statue. You know, wish Sideshow would do some stuff like this once in a while instead of just doing, you know, goggles up, goggles down, you know, take it off, have the hair flowing, crying or upset or something, and kind of pull from like an artwork or an artist style from a comic book. Kind of just do some throwbacks to some of the older stuff once in a while would be kind of good for exclusives. But all in all, it was really great. So let me know what you guys think. Do you like the way she came out? Do you like the style? It's kind of nice to have just a nice one-of-a-kind head. You know, is this something you guys would want to see more from Sideshow, or just kind of customizing yourself? So you never know what heads from other statues could do for your item. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back with some more videos.